Maureen, unmute your mic if you're still with us. Maureen, okay, seems Maureen. Okay, Maureen, are you still with us?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So we're starting to look at the topic on project selection. I hope you're there already. There are some notes that I've sent. I'll be adding some more in due course of time. So last time we looked at the introduction part of this unit, and we said we have key sources of ideas, not project ideas, yeah? So we mentioned a few. Such as the mass media, government ministries and departments, community-based organizations, and initiatives or ideas from community members, among others. So we said those are some of the sources of project ideas, yeah? So from these, you realize that if you're to get the ideas from all these members of the society, one thing you'll find, all these sources of, this is what I mean. If you want to start a project somewhere and you're getting all the ideas, you're getting so many different ideas from different people, then you'll have to select the most suitable idea to start your project. So probably you'll get one party telling you we have this issue which needs to be addressed. The government will say this. Maybe the mass media will highlight another one. If you go to the community members, they'll give you different ideas, project ideas. So as a project manager, one thing you need to do is to be able to select the most viable idea, which will be able to meet the needs of that particular target group, because you cannot be able to implement all of them. So that's why we look at the area on project selection. I said you have a few notes with you, but I said I'll be adding some more. So under selecting under project selection, we can also call this topic project selection, or selecting project, or project identification. So project identification is the process of choosing the most variable project which can solve the existing problem within the available resources in the organization. So that is what I've actually said. So there are so many factors that you'll consider when selecting the project. For example, the available resources that an organization has. So we have factors influencing selection of community project. We have one, which is impact of the project. So so we read there, this is an evaluation of the outcome of the project, where one analyzes whether the project is beneficial to the target group. So the project manager needs to do what? Needs to be able to know the impact a particular project will have on the target group or the target community. So that is one factor that you need to consider, impact of the project, or the impact, you can call them impact of the project, or even effects of the project, or even the outcomes of the project. You really need to consider that. So the impacts, the effects need to be beneficial or need to be positive to the target group. We have the other one. The second factor is relationship with the existing projects. So as a project manager, you need to think about the project you're about to start and the relationship it will have with other existing projects in the community or the area you intend to start this project. So the reason why you need to do this is to minimize or to stop the duplication of projects within the same community. For example, you may realize that if the project manager or the organization that wants to start a project somewhere doesn't conduct research or what we call feasibility study, then what will happen is you realize they are likely to start a project that already exists in that community. And when this happens, it will be said that such an organization just ends up misusing its resources, because it's not likely to help that community or the target groups also much. For example, let's say it's an organization that is targeting children, and then already these children are receiving feeding, are having a feeding program, and then another organization comes and starts another feeding program. So we say that this duplication of what? Projects, which is not likely to serve the purpose as a project, and this will definitely result to what? Misusing of the resources which could have been started, which will have been used to start another project. We have another factor that an organization starting a project needs to consider is project timeline. When we talk of timeline, we're referring to the duration this project will take from the time it is initiated to the time it is completed. From the what we call initiation stage to the closure stage, or monitoring and evaluation. So any organization planning to start a project needs to understand its project timeline, such as we are going to start our project, let's say in September 2020, and by maybe September 2021, you're supposed to have implemented everything and be doing the monitoring and evaluation. So that is another key factor to consider. Another factor an organization needs to consider is probability of implementation. So I read the notes. One should consider the probability of actually implementing the project within the given community, into account the level of acceptance or resistance in the given community by the target group. So this is another factor the organization needs to consider. It needs to consider its ability to implement this project in particular community. One thing they need to consider is by asking the organization, asking itself whether it has enough resources. This could be money, this could be enough time, or this could be labor. They need to ask themselves that we have enough resources. Another thing that the organization needs to consider when it comes to probability of implementation is is to take into account whether the level of acceptance or resistance, the level of acceptance or resistance in the given project by the target group. So the organization needs to, to conduct a research before starting this project to find out, is the community for the project or against the project? Because if it's against the project and the community and the organization decides to go ahead and implement the project, we say that project is likely to fail. Reason, it will be faced with a lot of resistance from the same people who are supposed to benefit from the project. So the organization needs to consider the probability of implementing a given project based on what? Its resources and the community's ability to accept or resist that project. We have the other one, availability of a team with the required skills. Another thing an organization needs to consider is whether it has the team. It has the teams. These are the employees, or enough labor, not enough labor, yes, labor that has the required skills, knowledge, to do the planning, to do the implementation, and to do the monitoring and evaluation of a given project. So this is something else an organization needs to take into consideration before, when selecting a project. Are we together up to there? You can unmute your mic.
Yes.
Good morning. Are you together up to there?
Yes.
Good. Swali, kuna swali? Okay, I'll take you through some more notes. It's unfortunate I've not yet posted them, but I'll be doing so in a short while. So we have something else. We have something else, which is criteria for selecting project. The notes, of course, are so much related to what we've discussed. So criteria, what criteria do organization, you can see from the notes I've written there, criteria for selecting project. So and I said you'll find that the same factors at the top might end up being the same with the criteria, but we'll add some more. So we say we have criteria criteria that organization use to select project. So one, we say is relevance. So relevance will mean the project being selected should mind or meet the needs of the target group or the community. Sawa? So relevance is one. If you're taking notes, you can take short notes. Project selected should mind needs of the people or target group. This means that the project should be able to meet what we call immediate felt need in the community. We have another criteria, we call it effectiveness. Effectiveness becomes the second criteria. Before selecting and implementing the given project, the project team members need to consider whether a given project will be able to solve the existing problems and whether community members will be able to sustain the project. Okay, So effectiveness becomes the second criteria. So I repeat, before an organization selects and implements a given project, the project team members need to consider whether a given project will be able to solve the existing problem and whether the community will be able to sustain the project that will be implemented. I want to believe you're good up to there, so I continue. We have the other one, which is impact. We've talked about impact already. We say, again, when selecting a project to be implemented in a given community, an organization needs to consider whether the project will be able to bring any benefits or any benefit to the community members. So the organization needs to consider the impact the project will have on people, on the environment, or even other sectors. Is that okay? Another factor that you need to consider is just like another criteria is the relationship with other projects. Sawa? Another one, relationship with other projects. I talked about this and said the importance of doing this is to reduce duplication of a project, And then we have another one, which you said is reduction of inequalities. This is another criteria an organization can use to select a project by asking itself whether by implementing a project, whether by implementing the project they intend to do so, whether it's going to reduce the inequalities existing in that particular community. Sawa? Another one is the target group. And we say under the target group is that the organization needs to ask itself whether the project will have any benefit to the target group. And another thing we say is that it needs to ask itself whether the target group is for the idea of that project being implemented in their, for them or in their community. And the last one is, is another criteria is through feasibility study. We say feasibility study should be done before selecting any project, so that so you conduct the feasibility study to understand the attitude, maybe the not the attitude, sorry, maybe to understand whether the organization has enough resources to undertake that project, and also to be able to identify whether the idea, whether the project an organization is planning to implement is supported by all the community members, to be able to know again maybe whether the organization will be able to implement this project within the timelines, to be able to know whether it will have a positive or a negative impact on the community or the target group. So that's why we say feasibility study is also another criteria. Is also another criteria that is used to select a project. So we have those criteria. I repeat, one is relevance, 2, effectiveness, 3, impact, 4, relationship with other projects, 5, reduction of inequalities, 6, target group, and 7, feasibility study. So you can unmute your mic. You can unmute your mic. In case you have any questions, you can ask.
Chair, can you refresh on the relevance point?
Relevance, okay. Somebody else?
Yes, that reduction of inequalities, the point.
Okay. Monica? How are you?
Yes,
How are you?
I'm fine.
Umetupata tukiwa wapi? Sawa, I hope you're following, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, sawa. So on relevance, I repeat, what you're looking at. Okay, fine. At least umenitoa microphone kwa loudspeaker, that is fine. So this is what I mean on relevance. I think that has been asked by Gerard. An organization can implement a project in an organization, and anyone looking at the project will be able to tell if that project is meeting the needs of that particular target group or community. So if the project is able to meet the needs of a particular target group or community, we say that project is relevant. A project becomes relevant because it's able to meet what we call the immediate felt need of a particular community. So for example, if you're to start a project in where, maybe a project maybe in an area that has water shortage, yeah? If you start a water project, then we'll say that project is relevant, you see. But if you start maybe a project, or maybe you start still in the same area, a project on food security, we will say then such a project will be relevant. But you realize you might start a project in an area which does not meet the needs of that particular community. You see, for example, you go start a project in an area where there is good rainfall throughout the year, and then you decide to go start a project on what? On, let's say, water. You go start a water project in such a community. Then we'll say your project is irrelevant. Why? Because it's not meeting the needs of that particular group. One thing that makes a project to be termed as irrelevant is because an organization fails to do what? An organization fails to involve the target group or a community in identifying what you call the most pressing need. So if an organization fails to involve the community or the target group to identify the most pressing need, then chances are high that project will be considered to be irrelevant. So that is a criteria. So relevance of the project. You get to know the relevance of the project even from the community members or the target group. I hope I've answered your question, Gerard. Gerard, unmute your mic. Gerard.
Yes.
Are
I've heard your point.
You've You understand, eh?
Yeah, I've understood.
Very good. Now, Maureen has left despite her asking a question. She had a question on inequalities, yeah? This is another criteria. I'll still answer regardless of the fact that she's still not online. The criteria for selecting project based on reduce of inequalities. What we mean is an organization. You see, in Africa, and we can even talk of Kenya. In Kenya, Kenya is a country. You realize that we are faced. People are faced by so many types of inequalities. Yeah. We have gender-based inequalities, gender inequalities. We have maybe age inequalities. We have disability inequalities. We have racial inequalities. So you find inequalities is a big problem I think in Africa, and also somehow in Africa, Africans tend to be more affected by the issue on inequalities more than the more developed countries. So you find women are still fighting for their rights. Why? Because they feel they're sidelined and they're faced by discrimination and inequalities. You find youths will still complain that they're being discriminated, and that's why you'll find people singing songs like, rhymes that, songs that will have topics such as pesa kwa nani, your microphone. Are you guys in a noisy place? If you're not, you can unmute your microphone kidogo. Sometimes the problem of muting microphone is that you might end up talking to yourself unknowingly. Yeah? Yes, unaweza jipata uko peke yako. Of course, people are logged in, but still not with you. So we have such songs, I think, by who? Sauti Sol, which talks of what?
Online, yeah.
Yeah, pesa kwa wazee na kazi kwa vijana. The reason is because they feel we have just some discriminations and some form of inequalities. So you'll find that Kenyans will feel that people, whites are treated better than blacks, even in our own countries. You'll find that people with disabilities feel that they are sidelined, and they're not treated, they're not given, they do not enjoy their rights as they're supposed to. So, of course, Constitution is there to bring in the idea of fighting the idea of inequalities. So you realize this is another criteria an organization can use to select a project to start is by doing what? Is by identifying a project or an idea or a project or an idea that will be able to fight the existing inequalities in a certain area or maybe in a given population. Maureen left, but I hope, Gerard, you got my point. Gerard, tuko pamoja? Gerard? Gerard? Monica?
Yes, teacher.
Oh, endo umebaki peke yako. I don't know. I don't know if they're logging off or I don't know. Maybe it's something to do with the internet. Okay, I hope you're still following.
So nimeingia shawafunza.
Ati?
Though nimeingia ushawafunza.
Kama usha... Haya. Okay, the topic is on criteria for selecting project. Tukiingia ulikuwa hapo? Ama tulikuwa mbele? Tulikuwa tushamaliza?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the topic, that is the subtopic, which is criteria for selecting project. It relates so much with whatever we had looked at. So we said one is relevance of the project. Another one is feasibility study. Another one is effectiveness. Another one was impact of the project. Another one was relationship of the project with other projects. Then reduction of inequalities. And then we have target group. And then we have two more points that I had not looked at. I wanted us first to complete. I wanted to see where you are so that I can complete on the two. Then we have ease of evaluation, yeah. Of course, another thing that influences, another thing that influences selection of a project is the idea of, evaluation. Of course, an organization is supposed to develop methods that will be used to evaluate the project. So that is another criteria for selecting project, ease of evaluation. The organization needs to be very much aware on how the project will be evaluated. Sasawa. How will the results of the project be measured? Because you cannot say that you've implemented a project successfully if there is no evaluation and monitoring taking place. Of course, evaluation helps to know whether the needs of the target group were met or not. Sawa?
Yeah.
Yes, and the last one is other development project effects. We say project selected should be able to solve several other problems existing within the community apart from the main felt need. I repeat, the point is under other development effects. And I say project selected should be able to do what? To solve several other problems existing within the community apart from the main felt need. So a project that will be an organization is intending to do what? To implement or to start is supposed to address the main felt need, but again, it's supposed to be able to solve so many other problems. Sawa. Maybe, for example, it's a project to fight, food insecurity in an area, yeah? So what should happen is, if these people are able to fight food insecurity, yes, they get food for the stomach. Of course, the project should be designed in a way that also it should be able to, to meet other needs of those people. For example, if they're able to get food, they should be able to produce supplements which they sell, and they're able maybe to meet other needs, such as maybe paying school fees, paying for medical care, maybe saving money to develop themselves economically and such. So that's why we say it's supposed to have other, whether that project will have other development effects. So we have all those points. I've added ease of evaluation and other development effects. It's not supposed to meet the immediate need only, but also to be able to address other existing problems that the target group is facing. You can mute your mic and tell me if you have any question.
I'm good.
Nice. Monica?
Yes.
You're good, or do you have any question?
Okay. In case of anything, I will confirm with Gerard.
Yes, I'm also a phone call away.
Yes.
So najua inaweza lemea Gerard pia.
Yeah.
So yes, but it's good you consult with him. Of course, we are creating the spirit of dependency here. So yeah, consult with him. If you still feel you've not been assisted, I'm a phone call
Yes.
away.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, and you
Okay.
can post questions. Yeah, kuna shida.
Yes.
We can continue to another subtopic. Just a minute.
Gerard. J.
Yeah. Niaje?
Wow. Mmesoma tu hizi criteria for selecting project planning.
Ametusomea hii project planning. Kuna hii topic ingine hapo. Hello.
Yes, nakusikia.
Oh, unasikia?
Yeah.
Ameselect hizo. Nitusomea tu hiyo hadi hajasonga sana.
Oh. Sawa.
Okay. Motherfucker. Kure.
Sorry, I got distracted a bit. Okay, we have another area we need to look at. Problems associated with project. I think this is a simple one. We can we'll have an easy time to go through it. So we have the first one, where we can talk of inadequate resources. I believe you all know what that means. Inadequate resources. This is Can you hear me kindly?
Yes.
Monica, can you hear me?
Unapotea kidogo.
Napotea.
Yeah.
Just a minute. Okay, let me work on my internet kidogo.
Gerard.
Sema. Naje?
Mugi amepotea kabisa.
Monica. Monica.
Gerard, Monica, hello. Can you hear me? Say yes if you can.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, my internet had a problem,
Okay.
Yes. Because I normally use my phone. Unfortunately, if a call enters, it distracts my internet, yeah?
Okay.
Yes, I normally use my phone to supply the internet. So that's the problem. Yeah? So that's why sometimes you may realize I'm clear, sometimes I'm off, especially
Okay.
with the call coming in. So we were
Okay.
looking at the problems associated with project. So we
Yes.
said is inadequate resources, whichever kind of resource. We talked of many prevailing needs in the community. You realize most African communities, um, are faced by so many problems. I believe that's true in your community as well as in my community. You'll find a community has a problem with water, food, diseases, illiteracy, retrogressive cultural practices, among others. So you realize this becomes a problem, when selecting a project, because a project might not be able to meet all the needs of the community. So we have another one, which is conflict of interest. Sometimes you realize that when a project wants to be started, you realize there are people who have hidden agendas or hidden personal interest in those projects, and they try to push for their ideas to be implemented, sometimes without considering the priorities priorities or the most felt need facing a given target group or the community. So sometimes you realize the community has this problem. We have maybe some leaders who are about to start a project, or several leaders having different ideas. So you realize this sometimes creates a big problem. So you see there's a conflict of interest. It could be between the leaders or even between the community and the organization. Yeah. Another one is lack of community involvement in the process of project selection. So lack of community involvement in project selection. So from the word go, we said it's important to have the community participating in identifying the most pressing need in their community. By doing so, once they identify and that problem is what is work to be solved, what is to be solved, what happens is, if the community gets fully involved in the selection of the project, they get to own that project from the initiation stage to the closure and sustaining of that project. But if they fail to be involved, they tend to do what? They tend to resist that project. Yeah. Then we have adequate funding. Inadequate, not adequate. Inadequate funding. Remember, projects that are started by people in our field, the social work field and the community development field, are not business making projects. Yeah. So they're not business making project or money making project, most of them. So what happens, you realize these projects cannot sustain themselves without getting funds from who? The donors. So all these projects rely on the funding from donors. So sometimes you realize maybe the budget to complete a project successfully may require, just an example, maybe 1 million, and the organization is getting funds such as 500,000, meaning they have a deficit for 500,000. So in such instances, they either look for more donors to top up the 500, or if they may get or they may fail to get. If they fail to get, this will of course affect the ability to successfully complete the project. So I repeat, some of the problems associated with project, either selection and implementation or whatever, include conflict of interest, inadequate human resources, many prevailing needs in the community, lack of community involvement in process of project selections, and another one is inadequate funding from the donors. Unmute your mic and tell me if you have an additional point or a question. Unmute your mic.
Can we say lack of education can lead to problems facing project management?
How? Explain further.
Because there may be an illiterate group where you try to initiate a program, but then due to their customs, it will not be able to go through.
Let me see. Okay. Okay, the point is correct, but I would say I will say such a problem will only arise if the organization initiating a project fails to involve the community in the process of project selection. Sawa. Is that okay?
Yes.
This will only
Yes.
become a problem. We've seen projects being started in the poorest communities, yeah?
Yeah.
So this only becomes a problem. Illiteracy will become a problem if the what? If they are not, if the communities or the people are not involved in what? In the process of project selection.
Okay. Can we also say lack of and proper planning can be a cause of problems
Very good.
facing project
Yes.
management?
Now that one makes a lot of sense. Good. Lack of proper
Planning.
planning. Yes. Failing to plan is planning to do what? To fail. Eh?
Fail.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct. Monica, something else? Or we are at par? Are we at par, Monica? Monica, unmute your mic. Monica, are we
Yes,
at par?
we are at par.
Good.
Yes.
Okay, so from what next? From the curriculum development, actually that is what you're supposed to cover in this topic. You have two subtopics. We have the three, yeah, the three areas, and we've looked at them. So next time, okay, we have some more work, yeah, that I gave you last week, yeah. So maybe you can look at that work, and then I'll be able to post these notes for you to go through. Of course, I need to edit them. And then if you look at the next topic, don't look at those notes first, which I've posted in the next topic. I'll need to work on them a bit because they're so much related to the second topic on project selection. What else did I need to tell you? So we post our work through the portal. You remember, I hope, whatever Gerard you were asking about, yeah? And then we can look at that work. And then once we are done, we'll see what else we can do before maybe the lesson ends. Tuko pamoja? I believe so. Am I clear? Let's unmute our mic a bit so that I'm able to know if we are,
Yes.
if you have a consensus. Monica, am I clear? Let's post our work, whatever we did. I'll give you about 15 minutes and then we can come back and continue. Yes?
Sure. Can you add?
What?
Nini hiyo?
Ndakuonyesha Monica.
Tutapost.
Okay, utaonyeshwa na Gerard.
Poa.
And teacher,
Gerard.
so you can give us a little bit of time because typing this work can take a little bit longer.
30 minutes?
Yeah, 30 minutes will be okay.
Okay, when you come back, please, Monica, you send me a text,
Yes,
yeah?
Cha.
You send me a text
I
when you've done.
Yes.
It's okay.
Monica. Monica. Monica.
Yes, Gerard.
Niaje?
Poa sana.
Kwani uko wapi usikii?
Mimi niko na mapresha mingi.
Shida ni
Hiyo
gani?
kazi
Hmm?
pressure ni nyingi yaki by the way. Cheki. Je,
Sema.
we ni kuandika umehandwrite hiyo kazi?
Yeah.
Si unifanyie favor moja.
Semaje
Nitumie.
Sawa.
Na si kwa hii okay.
WhatsApp, nakutumia WhatsApp.
I mean si kwa
Yeah.
Nitumie kwa Airtel line, sawa?
Sawa.
Sawa.
Okay. Alafu ukitaka kusubmit hiyo kazi unaenda hapa ilikuwa topic pale kumeandikwa discussion forum topic 2. Utaingia hapa kwa discussion forum. Alafu teremke utaona place imeandikwa add a new discussion topic. Usiingia hapo, ingia hapo niko hapo chini imeandikwa discussion. Alafu iko na arrow. Ukishaingia hapo itakwambia itakuonyesha hizo maswali plus mbona inaonyesha utaingia pale imeandikwa kuna star, iko na star alafu imeandikwa discussion forum, sawa? Hello Monica.
You are currently the only person in this conference.